Thank you for joining today. We're very excited. It's an exciting day for Wind Systems, as well as RentalMan. We have a new solution for you. It's the RapidCount Launch. So again, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for joining us today. Before we start, just want to go through some quick introductions. Myself, I'm Ryan Helmeid. If you joined webinars in the past, you've probably seen my face before. I'm on the communications team here at Wind Systems. Been here for about 3 years. And all the newsletters, all the release notes and things like that, I've been helping out the team there, getting that information out to you as best as we can. So that's me, but also do a quick introduction here for the main man of the show, Craig Richmond. He's our senior product manager. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, probably know who Craig is and have met him, have been on calls with him before. But Craig is our senior product manager. He handles the service solution inside of WindHub, so RentalMan solution there for service departments. If you're not aware, he's also headed up the IntelliSource solution that came out last year in 2023. So he's been the main person behind that, and all of the development, all of the new features and functionality has come out for that. But he's got a new solution to show us today. Craig has been at the forefront of this RapidCount development over time. So very excited to have him on. He's got tons of experience in the rental industry, the construction industry, even beyond wind. He's got tons of experience in both those industries. So he very much knows what he's talking about. So I'm glad to have him on today. But before we get started, just quick agenda. We will be going through, first of all, why inventory? So that's probably a main question for some of you. We'll talk through some of that. We'll also let Craig talk through a few of the, he's done some customer visits throughout the last year. That's really led into the development of this solution. Also mentioned the SIG process and what that's meant for the solution as well. And then the much awaited, we'll get into a live demo of this thing as well. So we'll be doing that, and then we'll have a question and answer at the end. So before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick poll for everybody. It's totally anonymous, so if you don't want to answer it, then that's fine too. But we're doing a quick poll of 2 questions here. Again, it's an anonymous. No other attendees can see your answers. I can't see your answers. Nobody at Wing can see your answers. So don't feel like you're giving away some secret sauce information there. But I'll launch this. It's just a question about inventory at your company. How often do you count inventory? And then if there's anything, are you struggling most with inventory at the moment? We'd love to hear about that as well. So it'll help kind of gauge, what the conversation will be like today, see if we're hitting the mark with things, right? And we definitely want to talk about things that is important to you. So keep that in mind. So while you answer that, just another quick mention, if you have any questions throughout or you have comments or ideas, throw them in the chat. I'll be doing my best to take a look at that throughout the webinar here and transfer those over to Craig. I think he can see them too, but you should have a little button somewhere on your screen there that allows you to enter in chats to the group or Q&As and things like that. I think you can send them directly to me if you like to as well, but we'll be answering questions at the end. If there's something else that's relevant to you, I'll stop the broadcast here and ask Craig that question too. But even if you have comments and ideas about the solution, again, is a brand new solution. I think we've done a lot of work to make sure that this is something that you as customers are going to find valuable inside your business. But if you have other comments or ideas, we're more than happy to hear about those and consider those for the future as well, for future roadmap as well. So now that we're done with that, let's get started and get into why inventory. So why inventory? There's 1,000 different topics inside of rental, right? That we could be covering as rental software providers. So why inventory? This topic has been bouncing around. I think in my almost 4 years since I've been here, I've heard the topic over and over again. It's been something that's been mulled around the product team. It's been something that's mulled around just the Wind Systems in general, right? But the last couple of years, we've been doing customer surveys. So actually the customer survey right now, I believe is still live. So if you haven't taken that, it's a great opportunity to let us know, what we should be building next or how we should be improving our current solutions and that sort of thing. So highly encourage you to take that survey if you haven't yet. It really guides us and helps us understand what's going to be valuable to you as customers in the future. But with that, Last couple of years, we've been seeing some comments from customers talking about some different issues around and challenges around inventory, right? So a couple of these comments kind of relate to, more. They would appreciate if there'd be more features related to purchasing and inventory management. Look at improving your sales inventory modules. Another comment. Another one here that's kind of unique too is that there's different processes that are still today that have some manual input to them. And that's something that we at Win Systems, especially in the RentalMan team, are trying to do away with. That's the whole, part of the whole purpose of RentalMan itself, right? Is to make things more efficient, productive, and easier for your rental teams. So I've seen some comments around that too. So that led us into, okay, 2023 last year, in our solution summit that we had, not the public one, we also get together privately within our own team to discuss some of the issues around RentalMan as it sits today and see what we could be developing in terms of the roadmap for the future of 2024, 2025, and 2026. At the end of the day, we decided inventory is the solution to go after. It's been something that the customers have been asking for. We want to provide something that's going to be of value for you. So we got a little scientific with it too. Came out with a hypothesis, right? So before we started this launch into this solution, our hypothesis that we wanted to test was it's a major industry challenge for customers to correctly determine inventory and to accurately forecast demand. So this in turn leads to under and overstocking items, resulting in lost revenue and unnecessary costs. Might sound obvious to you, but we really wanted to test this and have a set hypothesis to go into testing with. So want to make sure this was a large scale difficulty in the industry as well, and for you and the customer as customers as well. So Craig is actually the scientist, I guess, on our end that went out and actually conducted these little experiments. He was on quite a few customer visits throughout 2024. So I will let him dive into that and talk about that.
Hey, thank you, Ryan. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So yeah, to Ryan's point, we do try and visit as many customers as we can each year. And in Q1 this year, we visited 12 customers, which is pretty much about one a week. So alongside obviously receiving real-time feedback from our customers, doing the on-site observations, collaborating, receiving their ideas, it seemed like an ideal opportunity to speak to you all about challenges around inventory and also to see if customers thought that their inventory system fulfilled their needs. It did everything they needed to do. And if the comments we had on the product survey were outliers or if this was a genuine industry challenge. So first of all, thank you to everybody who we met with on site, who's looked after us on site. The feedback I get specifically as a product manager and the team and Win as a whole is invaluable. We appreciate it hugely. So what we said is the inventory system, does it fulfill all your needs? I was looking at three separate areas really. So can you ascertain inventory quantities with confidence? Do you know what you've got in stock at all times? Do you complete regular inventory cycle counts? So do you do the counting on a regular basis as well? That's baked into the process. And can you easily predict and forecast inventory demand? So on the basis you have accurate numbers because you do regular cycle counts, do you also know what's due out from sales contracts, workshop orders, that side of things? So do you have a 360 view of your inventory was the question. And if we tick the boxes for yes to all those questions, then effectively it was a fit for purpose inventory system. And there was really no need for this product because you have a system that works perfectly well at the moment. Interestingly, the high level feedback from the customers was that no one could really answer yes to all those questions. So some customers said, yeah, we absolutely do regular inventory cycle counts. Other customers said, yeah, I've got a good idea what I have in stock. But there was never all three of those questions answered on the one for the one customer. In addition to the high level feedback, the detailed feedback was really, really useful as well. So just generally, some customers didn't do certain inventory counts. The parts, for example, all for merchandise. Parts were kept outside the system. All ordering was paper-based. The feeling was that, yeah, in time we'd like to get this as part of the system and as part of some cycle counting process, but it's not a major priority. Other customers said, yeah, we do big bang count. We should over the holidays. Effectively close the doors. bring the pieces in, and we just count nonstop over the Christmas holidays. The feedback we got regarding that was that meant that the numbers were extremely accurate for a few days, and then gradually they became less accurate over time. Other customers said, yes, we do complete cycle counts, but the process is very manual and it can be quite inefficient. Other more general feedback, again, just to give you guys view of what we saw and what we heard, and say, we are interested in your feedback in this. So either as part of this or later, please feedback your thoughts on what we're saying, also the demo that we'll be doing shortly, and also any other challenges you have around inventory, because you are driving the direction of this product. Other feedback we had was that obsolescence was a major challenge, not easily knowing when inventory was last purchased or sold without interrogating the system RentalMan itself. And similarly, having to write off tens of thousands of dollars each year and not knowing specifically why. So almost a black hole there. So without the understanding of why the system's reporting different figures to real time, an inability to gauge why there was that discrepancy. So in many ways, this sort of gave us the validation that this product had the potential to make a real difference to the customer base and also reduce costs and provide real value. So that was almost like, as to Ryan's point, we had the hypothesis, we performed the experiment, and now we needed to get a process in progress so we could actually move forward with this. So as some of you know, we have special interest groups, so we call them SIGs, and that's why we bring customers on a journey with us for a discounted license fee to help tailor the product, give feedback throughout the process. So we have an MVP, the earliest stage of the product, which we're pleased to show you today. We decided during that requirements gathering process that there were really 3 phases for the software development. So the first stage was, okay, we need to get accurate numbers for inventory in the system. We need to do that as efficiently as possible. So cycle counting became our primary focus. Obviously, you need to know what you have in stock before you can think about demand forecasting, obsolescence, etc. As part of that, we identified that cycle counting was a very manual process. So as everyone knows, it involves a cycle count being printed coming out on a printer. You're then walking around with that count sheet, entering the numbers, walking around the locations, writing them on the piece of paper, and then entering them directly into the computer. And as this is done potentially daily for parts, merchandise, and inventory across every branch, there could be huge time and cost savings if we can actually improve this efficiency. So the first stage was to begin developing the cycle counting solution to be performed on a mobile device. And we already have what we call Win Mobile, which is used for task and role allocations for the servicing and for the logistics pieces. So we looked at building into this. Once we had the numbers in place, then we looked at the second stage, utilizing a dashboard in WinHub. So for those of you who know, WinHub is a one-stop persona-driven application where for logistics, servicing, rental coordinator roles, you have a 360 view of everything you need to do in a small subset of screens using intelligent filtering, prioritization, and rules engines. So the idea was then, let's get a dashboard in place for this. Ideally prioritized as well, so you can see what you're running short of, the demand for those particular items, your min-max reorder levels, and also what other branches in the district, region, and country have got. So from a company perspective, you can really start to smooth out the inventory quantities so every branch has the right quantity of parts and merchandise they need to meet the forecasted demand, whether it comes from internal for workshop order and parts or it's customer driven. And then the third stage effectively builds on that automation, builds on that in 2 distinct ways. And the idea is then we bring automation into play. So effectively, as far as the inventory quantities are concerned, if we know what we've got in our branch, we know what other branches have got, we can start to make suggestions to inventory managers and suggest that we move various parts inventory across, again, to smooth that out so every branch has the right amount of parts and merchandise they need at the right time. The second stage, again, building on the automation piece, is looking at standardizing procurement. So utilizing the concept of preferred suppliers. So if you always buy certain items from certain suppliers, then you can set that in the system at either branch, district, region level for CAP classes, alongside the min-max reordering and lead times for each item. And at that point, if you don't have the correct quantities in stock, then as well as automating and suggesting the automation of interbranch transfers, we can also suggest the automation of purchase quotations. And at that point, we know that we have the right quantities in the right inventory in the right places at the right time. And that would be, if you like, where we're going to get the biggest cost benefits, like this dashboard automating the movement, if you like, of the inventory across the organization. So as I mentioned before, cycle counting was the primary focus, and that's where we wanted to get something out, ideally for Christmas, which was achieved. And I'd like to give you a demo here. Just for full transparency, we have got a video roll ready to go with this, but we thought it would be much more beneficial to the customer base to give you a real-life demo. So there is risk involved. This is a transatlantic demo with different systems. So we'll show you what we have here. Okay, so those of you who know WinHub will certainly recognize this screen. And you'll notice on the left-hand side, alongside logistics, servicing, and telesource, we now have a new RapidCount icon. And in there are two separate options, assignments and auto-assignments. So some of the early feedback we heard was, rather than the printed counting sheets coming out on the printer, can we have them for assignment in the system itself? So here you can see the assignment screen. Again, different rows, different columns, if you like, different swim lanes. First of all, any counts that have been created overnight that are unassigned can flow through here. We've tried to bring into play visual indicators. So you can see we have the equipment indicator, parts and merchandise, and also parts and also the merchandise. And you can see for each of these, we also have a progress bar, which turns to different colors as you go through each count. So you can actually see the movement, if you like, and the counting progress. We wanted it to be super simple to actually allocate. So you can either drag and drop, choose myself, and effectively that's done. Or again, you can just hit there, move the count, and that comes through. Likewise, what it can do, and I can assign this to Kenny Copeland. If he's not available for any reason, I can change that. At that point, I can then assign it to myself. Likewise, at the top of the screen, again, just some other piece of information. For most branches, you'll be interested in a certain type of count, so you've got the ability there to see either equipment, parts, merchandise, or a combination. You can look at this at branch or at a higher level across many branches if you prefer, and you can look at specific counters to see exactly who's counting what. This screen also gets updated in real time as counting progresses. So if I hit the refresh button at any point, you will get a real-time view of that counting. So you'll see counts in progress and counts completed all in a single view. One of the customers who accompanied us on this journey said, that's super useful, but for a lot of our branches, it's just a single person who does the counting. So could we look at an auto-allocation screen? And by an auto-allocation screen, a screen where we have, in effect, those branches with set people doing set counts. So if we look at the demo branch here, for instance, we'll go into amend mode so you can see more clearly. What you have is the ability to set at branch level who's specifically allocated to do the equipment count, the merchandise count, and if you want to set somebody to do the parts count, you can assign that there also, and that gets updated. So what happens there is, on an overnight basis, when a new count's created, the system automatically, first of all, looks to see if anybody's allocated to that count. If they are, the assignment happens automatically. In addition to that, when a count is assigned to an individual, either manually, like I've just done, or automatically overnight, a notification does come through on the mobile device saying, hey, there is a task here to do, and it gives you details of that task. So again, we've tried to keep it as simple as possible, just the two maintenance routines in WinHub, but effectively this system now sets up the counting because RentalMan previously did not have the ability to assign a counter. Now we can specifically say who's doing that particular counting. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll move across to my mobile device.
Craig, if you can, we did get one question that came in. So
sure.
It says, how are the items that need to be counted determined through this?
Absolutely. So what we've done here effectively is use the standard RentalMan cycle counting process. So currently there's 3 stages to the process. There's the count itself, which is set up in RentalMan. There are plans we're going to do it slightly differently in the future, but anybody who's doing counting currently can set the counts up in RentalMan, or if they're set up already, this just works out of the box. So the counting detail, the count information as to what you're counting, the frequency of what you're counting, gets set up in RentalMan, and this system then pulls the data. And RentalMan effectively polls on a nightly basis and said, based on what you said previously, this is what you need to count. And that then gets fed through to this system. Okay.
Yeah, and while he's going through that too, just another quick note to mention, with WinHub and RentalMan and all these solutions that we're building in the future, or building now or exist now, right? All of these are very role-based. So if you haven't seen a lot of the wind service solution, logistics solution, things like that, IntelliSource, the direction that we are looking to go, part of the strategy is to make everything very role-based, to make things task-based for those employees that are carrying out the tasks at the branch level, and things like that. So as you can see before, we are in WinHub. It's very much a manager's view, or whoever is handling the task assignment inside the business, right? It's very catered to that role, right? And there's the ability to auto assign, things like that. But now Craig's going to be going into the mobile application, which is what mechanics or rental coordinators, or if you have a warehouse crew, right? This is what they will be using on a daily basis to conduct the actual counts. So
yeah, absolutely right. So again, the 3 counts that I've just assigned to myself have now come through on my inventory counting screen. And this is the same task allocation screen that you have for field servicing tasks and also logistics. As you can see, we have the same icons. So I can see the first count I have is my equipment count. Three lines to count on there. Again, we'll look at subsets of data for the purposes of this run through. And if I click on that, what I can see is effectively 3 lines on the screen, 2 that have a gray circle with a B in there. That indicates their bulk line. So a visual indicator, first of all, their bulk lines, and all they're expecting is a quantity. So I can literally come in here, type in quantity, 25, hit done. And you'll notice the progress bar at the top of the screen has now moved along because I've counted 1 out of 3. If I refresh my screen in WinHub and look at it in RentalMan, I can see that I've counted 1 of 3 as well. So everybody's got a real-time view. Likewise, I can come in here, count my second line, and that also comes through quite easily. The third line doesn't have the bulk indicator because it's a serialized line, and I have to enter the equipment codes directly. So again, we've introduced the concertina field, so you can have many lines on there, hit on them, and then you got a subset and see all the equipment codes that have been allocated. What I can do at this point is simply enter the numbers themselves, and that gets added. And you can see the system's telling me that it's expecting to find 4 of these 10 kilowatt trailers. I've now entered 1. So again, I've entered 1 of 4, and I can enter equipment numbers there directly. One of the customers we were dealing with said, would it be really, really useful if we could use the barcode feature? So again, if you find onto the barcode, it's tab there, you can see on my screen, you can use barcoding on equipment, so you can quickly scan the various items if you need to. We've also brought into play exactly the same validation that RentalMan uses if you're entering the equipment count into the system. So if I, for example, enter another item, I then get confirmation messages. So this particular piece of equipment is actually out on rent at the moment. So just like RentalMan, this particular app's telling me that, hey, this equipment shouldn't be available. Are you sure you found that one? And it's giving you the opportunity to say yes or no, I have found that one. So I can say, yes, I have actually found that one, hit that, and I've now found 3 out of 4. So if I head back to my main screen, you can see my equipment count is now fully finished, and we've got the green indicator that will be reflected everywhere. Just moving on to the various other counts. So the merchandise count, you'll notice the look and feel is exactly the same. In reality, we try to keep the screens as bare bones as possible. So we're just giving the counter the information they need to count as quickly as possible. So if you have many different items in the same location, I can come in here and say, okay, I'm actually around A1 at the moment. Show me what I need to count in A1, and I get a shortened list. Likewise, I can come in here and say, I'm next to the glasses, show me the glasses. And the cursor directly goes into that field as well. So we're trying to reduce the number of clicks that we actually have as far as the inputs are concerned to give the information. Again, another company said, we actually barcode our item code. So can we have a barcode scanner there so I can literally come in here and scan that particular item? So we've got a barcode scanner built in. You'll notice on the left-hand side, we have all the A1s and then the B1s and then the C1s. So wherever possible for parts and merchandise, we've we've built in bin number ordering, bin location ordering. So again, using alphanumerics and numerics, then you can come in here and change those numbers and follow that route effectively. So we're trying to give a route to the counter so they can come through and just enter what they see in front of them so they know where they need to go and they're not having to go back and forth. So again, you'll notice that what we've also introduced here is the ability to reduce the number of inputs we have. So if I hit done here, I'm down to the next item, I'm down to the next item. And every time I choose that item, it now tells me I need to choose the glasses in the A1 bin. I can enter that, hit done. I'm now moving down the list. And you'll notice as I'm entering these numbers, anything less than 50% is orange. As I pass over that, over 50%, it turns to yellow. So again, a clear indicator. We're halfway through the count so far. We're over halfway. If I just follow this through to fruition, you'll notice that the bars move forward, but it becomes really, really simple to use. The other change we're making to this, again, to make it even simpler, is the ability to have this in a number pad view. So effectively, if I'm entering numbers, I don't need to see any of the punctuation characters. So I just want a number pad where I can hit numbers as quickly as possible, move on to the next. And again, you'll notice that count's now green as well. So just to finish this off, as far as the parts are concerned, exactly the same look and feel as merchandise. You'll notice we've got the bins on the left-hand side. So for example, my parts are on racks and I have locations on racks. I know exactly which rack number to go to and I can enter the numbers directly. So again, just for completeness, you'll see I can come through here, enter these numbers as quickly as I need to. It's interesting also to know that as part of this, we're capturing the first line that was entered and the last line that was entered on the count. So we can actually get some quite useful metrics. So if you're trying to standardize counts, know how long a line takes on a count approximately, set some rough targets and goals, you can also set that across the organization as well. Finish that count, and effectively at that point, we have 3 green counts. If I look at this on my RapidCount screen in WinHub, any inventory manager who's interested can actually see that, yes, all counts have been completed. And likewise, as far as reporting is concerned, we can say how many counts have been completed successfully, how many weren't fully completed for that day, and give lots of additional information too.
Right. Thanks, Craig. We do have a couple questions that came in throughout that demo too. So couple of questions around barcoding. Yes, the barcoding works. Looks like that one was answered. The other one was, does the software support true barcode scanning, i.e. Zebra devices, or is it just scanning from a camera?
It's scanning from the camera currently, and again, we're going to be led by customers if there's any additional functionality. So I'm using an iPad for this at the moment. So this is, we're using an app, a development mechanism called Flutter, which means it's available in both the App Store and Google Play. So you can have this on the iPhone. I'm using this on my iPhone and iPad, but it will be available on Android as well.
All right, awesome. And I think that answers the other the questions from that same person too about iOS or device and mobile requirements, right? So there's that. And then another question was, what happens if the location, quantity, or item is incorrect? Any answers to that?
Yeah, you have the ability to change the numbers. So effectively, just like in RentalMan, up to the point, at the end of the day, those numbers are set in stone. You can come back in here as many times as you like and change the numbers if you want to. There's going to be a separate review phase as well in WinHub, which I'll talk about shortly. But effectively, if you enter an equipment code incorrectly, there's a trash icon there, and you can remove that from there, and it'll remove it automatically. Or if you find something else that you weren't expecting to find for that cat class, it'll also add that subline as well. So we've tried to reflect pretty much exactly what RentalMan does, the same functionality, and that then gives you exactly the same views you have.
Okay, great. And again, if anybody in the chat here, if we're not answering things 100%, we'll try to get to them again at the end. Just yell at me in the chat. And if we can't get it handled, we can definitely get in touch with you afterwards. I'll make a note of it. But just one more, I think, until we do, maybe we'll handle the rest of the Q&A at the end, which is coming very shortly. But, if you have, the question is, if you have serialized parts, do you enter a serial number or just the total quantity of the serialized items?
I believe it's the total quantity of the serialized items, but I will check that and come back to you, Ryan, to confirm.
Okay. All right. Man, so many questions coming in. Great. This is great to see. I'm glad you guys got questions. This is great. We'll do one more. So in RentalMan, can you see fold/unfold to see the serial number for serialized sales items count? How would a user see the serial number being counted?
For serialized sales items, I believe we'll be adding that shortly, the ability to add a serial number. Currently, it's just the total quantity number, but we will be looking at adding the ability to add serialized parts in there as well. Again, for the customers who joined us initially on this journey, that wasn't a high priority item. So what we've got currently works for equipment, bulk parts, if you like, and numbers. But yeah, absolutely, we'll be adding this. But any feedback you have as well, please put this in the chat or reach out to myself and Ryan afterwards, because I'm extremely keen to see what else we can add to this to make sure it's of value to everyone here.
Yeah. We'll get to more Q&A at the end, but I just real quickly wanted to go through. So we showed you a desktop app. We showed you the mobile app, right? There's tons of functionality there. But, what does this mean overall for your business potentially, right? So we talked about in the beginning, in the poll, we kind of covered, how often are you counting? So, a lot of people said one time at the end of the year. Again, that potentially leads into having inaccurate counts on inventory, right? So definitely a challenge there. Maybe you've faced that, maybe you haven't. Maybe you've seen the side effect of that, of almost throwing tens of thousands of dollars in the bin, right? So that's definitely a cost savings that could be factored in there. Accuracy and counting were on that poll as well, were another challenge. So clearly, having a more succinct counting platform might be of help there. But overall, what does this mean for your business? So on top of the tens of thousands of dollars that you can be potentially saving, right? There's also this other aspect of just time savings, right? So again, it's probably not one person at each one of your branches counting this stuff. You might have somebody who's a mechanic that's counting. That person's time could be better spent getting equipment ready for rent again, or doing checks on equipment, that sort of thing. Usually your service departments, they have a giant backlog of these things, right? So the other aspect to it too is that person's time just could be better spent on other things other than counting inventory. Inventory is important, right? But at the end of the day, you'd probably have them rather fixing equipment, getting equipment ready to go out, getting equipment that's coming back in, handling the phones, that sort of thing. So we did a little bit of a study and kind of estimated that, RapidCount can cut the time. You've probably seen this stat here, but you can count the time that it takes to complete a count. It could be from, if you have a 60-minute, it takes somebody 60 minutes to count parts or merchandise or equipment, right? That can be cut down to 30 minutes, right? So if you take 3 hours a day, maybe it's spread across employees, that's fine, right? But if it's not, if it's one person counting each one of those things, maybe you have a intern of sorts or something like that. It's coming to work for the summer and just literally counting inventory for half the day. That could cut their time from 3 hours to 1.5 hours. So overall, what that kind of means for this situation here, and to put it in perspective, I'm trying to share my screen here. So we have a little calculator that we kind of put together. So if you take this and put it in perspective, maybe you have 30 rental locations, right? One employee is at each branch counting 3 hours a day, earning $28-ish per hour or something like that. And they're working 250 days per year, accounting for vacation time or holidays, wherever it might be. So you want the accurate inventory counts every single day. But if they have to spend 3 hours every day doing that, or it's split between people who are all who are all doing that for parts, for merchandise, for equipment. You're looking at roughly, in that scenario, you're looking at roughly 11,000 hours, more than 11,000 hours saved per year in time savings across your organization. The other thing too is in wage value savings. I know it's not, you're not sending them home at the end of the day, so you're not saving that money technically, right? But you're also not spending, that person's not spending the time that you're paying them to do other more productive tasks. For example, we already talked about service, but if you take rental coordinators, I think every branch that I've ever visited, the rental coordinators running around almost like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to handle phones, trying to get equipment ready because the yard guy is out that day, talking to the drivers that are coming in, maybe even handling logistics or even making deliveries themselves, right? So all in all, your employees, their time could be better spent on things that are not inventory. So we want to make this as easy as possible for you and your organization. Make it easy for them so they don't have to. I kept seeing the one at the end of the year count happening, right? That was one of the more popular answers in our poll, and that's fine, right? But if that means that you're grabbing every single employee, paying them overtime, coming into the branch during holiday season, nonetheless, maybe at the end of the year, that's time that they could be spending with their families instead or something, right? I'm sure they don't want to be counting parts in a warehouse somewhere, and they much rather be doing that. So it could have an effect as well on overall, just happiness from employees and things like that. So that's kind of the way that we're seeing things now. But Craig, anything else you'd like to mention? I think maybe you wanted to mention one or two things on the future roadmap.
Yeah. Let me just talk through briefly. I know we're getting short of time, but yeah, so it's really exciting to us that as far as the mobile app's concerned, we can see it's going to give immediate cost savings based on our estimates so far. The next few phases, again, just to give you an idea of the roadmap, again, we're working with customers on this. If you want to join the effort as well to help shape it, give us an idea of what else would be of benefit, please let us know. So the cycle counting mobile app, for release in December 24. Other feedback we had was that the creation for cycle counts is quite a manual, long-winded process, and we have ideas about how we can improve that to make that much more efficient and much more automated. The other idea, again, that's come from other customers is the fact that if we introduce some metrics of your choice in there, maybe for turnover, maybe for demand, we can then identify via the system your most important items. And rather than having a count fixed in stone at the beginning, we can make sure we're counting the most important items for you most regularly to make sure you know what you have in stock for those particular items. So by the end of Q1 2025, we're looking at getting the cycle count creation piece in play. Then coming at the end of Q2, improvements around cycle counting reconciliation. So currently when you've entered the numbers into the system in RentalMan, there's then a reconciliation phase, there's a report, etc. And then you can say, yeah, I'm good with these numbers, and then move on. A lot of customers have said it'd be really, really nice to have an approval stage there so we can see in detail what the cost effects are, the quantity effects, before we actually sign those off and we write those off to the GL. So again, the same sort of way we have dashboards in the system that we've talked about previously, almost having an approvals dashboard we think will drive cost savings and give visibility in one location and the inventory location. Just building on the back of that as well, we spoke about the dashboard as well and having this inventory 360 dashboard. So in Q3 next year, by the end of Q3, we're looking at having this dashboarding view in a prioritized order, again, using metrics of your choice. So you can decide what's most important to see. You can see shortfalls. Again, we can have classifications just like we do with service solutions. So prioritized in red for parts and inventory you need immediately. Likewise, what we have in branches, what we have them in max levels, and we can get some really good comparison details and data. And then in Q1 26, adding procurement in there as well and the automation piece. So effectively at that point, you have the 360 dashboard, plus you also have automatic suggestions to the inventory managers saying, we suggest you get these parts of these merchandise from this branch, and you send these parts merchandise to this branch in exchange. So you have a full truck going both ways, but we have APIs actually in play, making sure that we have the inventory smoothed out across the organization. So that's, in some respects, the immediate priorities, if you like, and the goals that have been set on the journey so far. But I'm really excited about where we can take inventory management in the future. Again, just to give you some ideas, RFID, barcoding's in there, but it would be so much easier if you come into a particular location in the workshop, for example, just hold your device and all the barcodes are read automatically, so you don't have to go around counting them. Likewise, another customer who came with us on the journey said, really the goal should be perpetual counting. So cycle counting is essential at the moment, and it's by far what we need to do at the moment. But if we always knew what we had in stock without having to count, that's the ideal, and the system just knows. So they said, we have telematics on our vehicles and our equipment. We have geofences, so we know the locations of those areas. We know the lat long of those particular assets. So at that point, I don't need to count that equipment because I know exactly where it is. And likewise, having that information and it being pulled in automatically to the count rather than having to go around and count it is a huge bonus. Likewise, speech to UI capture. So rather than having to enter the numbers manually, just pressing a button on the screen, entering the numbers as you're going down the count list. Lots and lots and lots of things we can do to improve it. And I think there's also, again, looking more longer term, but there's certainly ways that AI can assist here. We have, as part of the 360 dashboard, what we're talking about at the moment is the ability to forecast over the next week or 2 weeks and what we need in stock. Again, using AI, we will have the facility to look at previous data for the branch, for this particular parts inventory, etc., gauge the demand, and almost at that point, be able to forecast over a longer period, be it by month, by quarter, by year even, just to get an idea, in which case budgeting will come into play quite heavily as well. So having that ability to make sure you have everything in stock, either on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, will really drive productivity and efficiencies. And finally, again, other pieces we've seen which really drive, which I've seen out in various demos at the moment, is the ability to recognize quantities using AI. So if I hold my iPad up to a rack, I can estimate the number I have there. So rather than having to have somebody count them manually one by one, it'll make an estimate. And in some respects, as long as that's over the min-max level and the forecasted number that I need for counting, then that gives me a good idea of, yes, I'm good with this item, I'll move on. So there's no fires around this item, I can move on to the next one. And likewise, having cameras in various locations as well that automatically can estimate those quantities in bulk. It's a little way off, but again, I'm really excited about where we can take this in the future.
Definitely. So we have a few minutes left. I'll try to get as many questions as we can in, but Craig will do a little bit of a rapid question round, if you don't mind. So another question here is, can we count an item more than once per cycle, or is this a RentalMan limitation?
You can decide how often you count an item within a cycle. So you can say, I'll count it on the first day of the cycle, the 7th day, decide how long that cycle is. So you can count an item multiple times within there, if you like, on day one. You can count them every day if you wanted to, your most important items, classify those and say on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I need to count this one. It's the most important. And that's really the bit I'm trying to get to in the future, whereby we can decide which are your most important items, and we can then decide the priority of how often we count those.
Okay, awesome. Another one here is, can this be used for end of year inventory or only cycle counts?
Currently, this is cycle counts that are set up in RentalMan. Again, the beauty, just regarding this is plug and play. So if you have RentalMan cycle counts in play at the moment, you don't need to make any changes. It's literally 3 APIs we set up in WinHub, and at that point, everything happens automatically. So it is plug and play. We can change this out. If you don't use cycle counts in RentalMan currently, again, there's a short PS engagement just to make sure that you have your cycle count set up, then everything will flow through. In theory, based on that last question, I'll need to check with RentalMan experts. There's a potential that you could set up one big cycle count for everything for a year, which may cover that. But again, you may have that inaccuracy we spoke about earlier, where you know how much is in for one period of the year, but it may be less accurate again. But again, I can investigate that. That's an interesting question.
All right, awesome. One more here is, how do the quantities entered translate into real quantities in the system?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the comparison that takes place. And after you've entered the quantities that you've seen, and the system obviously has estimated the quantities that it knows as part of this, there is a report that's produced that says, okay, this is the reconciliation report, and it shows you what the system counted and what your teams counted as well, with the cost variances as well between the two and the quantity variances. That's currently on a report that you can study. That's the bit that I also, as part of the Q2 phase next year, want to get that into WinHub in more detail so you can have full visibility of that. Manipulate the data in real time as well. Look at the various variances and then feed that back into the system. But again, it feels like everybody's got a huge amount of ideas as well. So please, any feedback you have, I would dearly love to hear it.
Okay. Yep. And we're at time. I know a couple of you have more questions. One more. We'll just get one more in here. Somebody was asking if phones. It sounds like they're asking if the phones will come with the solution. So our asset types will be using their phones? Well, or will they be receiving a tablet?
Yeah, to be honest, we've tried to make it as generic as possible. So if you're using, because some companies prefer Android, some prefer tablets, some prefer phones. Same with iOS. Whichever devices you use, be it Android or iOS, will be compatible with this because we're using the Flutter app, which is compatible with both types. So we won't be issuing any phones directly with this. So that'll be of your choosing, just to make sure it's to your organization's recommendations. But you can certainly test it out using that. And again, if this is of interest, more than happy to come out with a test system to show you it in action as well.
All right, awesome. Let's see, do we have time for one more? Let's do one more. Again, if I don't answer your question, I will get an email to you afterwards with an answer. So offline cache work. Will offline cache work if the connection is lost while counting on a mobile device? So loose connection, yeah. What does that look like?
Yeah, Win Mobile has offline caching in place as standard for field servicing and also for logistics, where you're heading out on routes that you haven't got great connectivity. So this will be using exactly the same. It has an offline storage database in place at the moment. So we store data there. And when at the point of hitting done on a particular line or at a time when we do have connectivity, the system will then sync and send the information back to WinHub and RentalMan in real time.
All right, awesome. All right, we will cut it there. We're over time, so I apologize for taking the extra 2 minutes. There's just so many questions we wanted to get to. So again, I will get you an email with an answer from Craig afterwards. I should have your email here. So I will get an answer to you as best I can. So at the end of the day, thank you very much for joining us here today. Again, it's a very exciting day for us here at Win Systems and for RapidCount and for RentalMan. The team's done tons of work into creating this thing so far. Again, if you have ideas or comments or anything like that, we'd love to hear about them. So get those to your CSM or your account manager, anybody here at Win Systems, and we'll definitely take that stuff into account. But again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time.